respected delegates, deans, heads of the departments, faculty colleagues, and my dear students. A very good afternoon. This is Josna Devi Bodapati, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Vignans deemed to be university. So happy to host this webinar. On behalf of the Department of CSE VFSTR, I welcome you all to this webinar. This webinar is organized under CSI chapter of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, VFSTR. As you are all aware, the Department of CSE VFSTR has been organizing a series of webinars on emerging technologies for the benefit of the students, teachers, and research scholars. So far in the year 2021, we have successfully organized 3 webinars on diverse topics. The first webinar was on rough set theory and its applications by Professor C.R. Rao, a professor from University of Hyderabad. The next webinar was on cloud native product development by Rajiv Golapudi, Senior Director, Application Lifecycle Management, SAP Bangalore. And the recent webinar was on need for optimization techniques in machine learning, which was delivered by Dr. Subramaniam, Senior Professor from Pondicherry University. And today we are back with another webinar on modeling software architectures using Robin Milner's calculus of communicating systems. It brings me great pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar. As a speaker for today's webinar, we have with us Professor Hrishikesh Joshi, an eminent professor and renowned researcher from IIT Bombay. As you all know, any human-made physical system, such as an automobile, a building, or any instrument needs to be engineered correctly to obtain the desired behavior. Similarly, software itself is also a product needing the systematic discipline of engineering. The view of software as an engineered product leads to the disciplines of software engineering and software architecture. Software engineering deals with how to move from nothing to the final product, while software architecture focuses on what the product is, what is inside this product. Our speaker is a pioneer with over 2 decades of expertise dealing with concepts such as interactions, program structures, abstractions, conceptual models, ontology, meta models, specifications, design, analysis, concurrency, distribution, parallelism, processes, and programs. Calculus of communicating systems, so shortly known as CCS, it refers to the theory of communicating systems. CCS was developed by Robin Milner in 1980s. So CCS is a compact model of representing, interacting, and communicating concurrent systems. The talk mainly focuses on introduction to the CCS model of computation with several examples, and then the speaker will also enlighten us how these CCS models can be used to build models in software architectures. Now I request Dr. D. Venkateslu, Professor and Head of the Department, Computer Science and Engineering, to speak few words about the webinar.
Thank you very much, Madam. So thank you very much, Professor Hrishikesh Joshi, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, IIT Bombay.
Glad to be here.
For accepting our invitation and accepting our invitation to deliver a talk on modeling software architecture using calculus of communicating systems. So myself and Joshi were there in IIT Madras in the 90s, and he was doing PhD under Professor Janakaram, and I was under Timothy Gonsalves. So he happens to be continuing in the academics for a quite long time. Soon after his the research, he joined as a faculty at IIT the Bombay. So he did extremely good work in software engineering. Even those days, actually, he published one paper on IEEE transactions on software engineering. It's a very renowned journal, actually. So I mean to say that Joshi is a very dedicated researcher at the point in time itself, and he has been continuing at IIT Bombay. So when I contacted him, and he has graciously accepted my invitation to deliver a talk of areas of interest. So thank you very much, Professor Joshi, once again. So thank you very much, Madam, for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your views on the webinar. Now I request Professor K.V. Krishna Kishore Garu Dean Library and IT Services, Head of the Department IT, to share his views.
Move on, madam.
Yes, sir. Now I request Gandhi sir to introduce speaker of today's webinar. Gandhi sir?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce today's speaker, Professor Hrishikesh K. Joshi Garu. Professor Hrishikesh K. Joshi received his Bachelor of Engineering degree in Instrumentation and Control from College of Engineering, Pune in 1989. He received MTech degree in Computer Engineering from University of Mysore in 1992. He received PhD in Computer Science and Engineering from IIT Madras in 1996. Professor Joshi joined with CSE Department, IIT Bombay in 1997 and served in various roles. His recent teaching interests include software architecture, design and re-engineering of object-oriented programs, process engineering, abstractions and paradigms for programming. His research interests include design patterns and design metrics, software architecture specifications, process models, meta models, distributed and concurrent programming, code re-engineering and refactoring ontology. He received fellowships from University of Trento, Italy, National University of Singapore, IBM Bangalore and Pune. He has rich experience working with various projects. Few of them were funded by IBM, Microsoft, Infosys, TCS, Tata Infotech, DST, and Ministry of Information Technology. And also he was an advisor for various sponsored and funded projects. Professor Joshi has 100 plus articles at his credit published in star-rated journals and conferences of international repute. Significant honorary positions held by Professor Joshi include he was the Senate member of IIT Bombay, Associate Editor, Proceedings of Indian Academy of Sciences, Vice Chair, GATE, JOM, SEED, UC, IIT Bombay. He worked in various program committees and reviewer of international conferences. He is a member of academic selection committees, mentor, professor at IIT Dharwad, invited Senate member at IIT Dharwad, distinguished visitor IEEE, being a member of Board of Studies for the several universities or colleges, he contributed for design of curriculum. Thanking you all.
Thank you, Gandhi sir. I thank Professor Hrishikesh Joshi for accepting our invitation. Now I request Professor Joshi to take over the session. Sir, please. Sir, please enable the audio, sir.
Hello.
Sir.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And I'm glad to be here. Professor Devian has been a long-standing friend, and I'm glad he still remembers our association way back in IITM. We were there about 2 decades ago, and we have seen the most of the evolution in the field of software, networks, and internet. The time when we were working, there was very little on this internet part. Java was just coming in, and C++ was growing. Ethernet was getting established, and we were using FTP and other tools. And some of the senior professors here, or the senior members, may remember those days. So a lot of water has flown under the bridge, and many new technologies and paradigms have come into existence, especially dealing with large scale programs. So programs are no longer written on a single computer, like a .exe file, one single file, and you're done. So whole time, we have written many such programs. Even in scientific computing, some of us may be writing such programs. Of course, in our instructions and classes, we do write. But most modern programs have crossed the boundary of a single computer, and they involve multiple computers, not only multiple computers, they are, all connected over internet and different kinds of devices, and also different programming languages and tools. So it's not one single, programming language that we use for large scale modern programs. So take, for example, an e-commerce website or a logistics website or an e-governance website where you open forms and then type something in and something happens there. So obviously we have MySQL running somewhere in the background, or a typical example of giving. And in the browser itself, you have JavaScript programming execution environment inbuilt in your browser. And then you have background servers and services, and there may be PHP scripts, and they may invoke some local Python scripts or other scripts, org scripts, and so especially we can see that and cloud services, of course, middleware. The programming has become quite huge now. It has crossed the boundary of a single executable process, which we typically see in our classroom exercises. We compile it and we have an exe file. So when programming is growing, in this direction has already grown. The techniques in software engineering, that were used almost earlier for small scale program. They were also called large scale program, but the scale has really outgrown the scale that was there earlier. And the way we deal with programs, the way we want things to be done through programs on internet, through devices and all that, it has given rise to new paradigms. So UML was the buzzword a few years ago, maybe about more than a decade ago, and everybody who was employed in industry doing IT had something or another to do with UML objects, and so now software has outgrown that level of abstraction. So you have objects and you have object-oriented designs inside programs, and then there are many such programs, and they interact. So then the paradigm is now going more than it's going beyond object orientation, and we are now into processes. So uh, processes basically essentially have multiple tasks and dependencies. So everywhere you see, you look at Amazon, we enter, we order items and we make payments, and then the item gets picked somewhere from somewhere, and then it goes somewhere, then delivery schedule happens, and then there are many such items simultaneously flowing from different points to different points. So it's a huge logistics problem, and whole thing gets carried out very beautifully. The items comes at our doorstep, and we change that. We see that the status has been changed, delivered. So from payment to pickup to delivery, and then feedback, and then so then the discounts. So many such things we get to see on e-commerce websites and online transactions. So all these are, so you cannot write all these in a single object-oriented program, or even if you had to write different object-oriented programs using the old distributed paradigm. There was COM, DCOM, core bar. They're still there, but they are now in the back end. So it is not sufficient. Now browser is a new very important entity, and we use the browser for interactions, and then that's where the programming starts. So it's huge background on which modern programs reside. So now in this while software is evolving in this way, what are we doing with modeling? So UML, for example, was a real modeling toolkit a decade ago, and so if you look at OMG has now got a new standard called BPMN, or business process modeling notation. So we are obviously now big into processes, and people are using that for process modeling. Now that is what for the visual point of view. What happens to the computing point of view, the computational model of the program? Because you just don't want to only model visual and then give it to people for programming. They will make several mistakes, and we will not know whether the models that we are doing are correct. Okay, they're correct, or the specification, they meet the specifications, and and they do things that we want them to do, and they don't do things that we don't want them to do. So all these need to be checked and verified. So how do we make sure that our models are also computationally sound? So we need some low-level modeling uh, toolkit or low-level modeling machinery to build our ideas, which are found in modern applications, in modern software. So this is where, so there are several possible solutions to this, but one of them today which we are discussing. So I'm dealing with several of them, and then you can go through some of my paper, our papers in our group, software architecture group, and IIT Bombay, which we have been you know been operating, and several students have graduated from that, masters and PhD students, and some bachelor's thesis also. So you can have a look at some of these aspects to on my website. Through papers you can get an idea. But today I have picked up one set which is called CCS. Okay, CCS stands for calculus of it's a calculus of communicating processes, the communicating system. So now I'm going to go to the presentation. So is the presentation visible?
No, sir.
Okay, so I think.
Could you please share?
Yeah.
Madam?
Yes, sir. So I have given permissions.
Yeah, is it audible?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah. So I hope so for all the participants also.
Okay, can you
Yes,
see?
sir. Yes, sir. Now it is.
I'm just changing, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so now we can see my presentation. I have just switched off my video and using the presentation full screen. So architecture modeling in calculus of communicating system, structure and interaction. So this talk tells us, or this discussion will develop core ideas in modeling, and this is one of the modern methods of capturing computations, and we have found it very useful for representing or for modeling the modern architectures and things that you see in modern applications. Okay. So when you look at programs, they say if you take a typical program, you want to set up your .com, and then you will have end-to-end architectures. There may be it may be three-tiered architecture, or it may be MVC, model view controller, and all that. So, and it involves several components, and they're interconnected, and you want to understand how they are interconnected. What do they do, what is connected to what, and what is the information flow among them. So it's basically a big network of components that we have when we architect the software. Now we want to understand which component is connected to which component. and how many connections are there between components. So imagine circuits, a circuit board. A circuit board has many components. Suppose there are IC chips, and suppose you remove all the IC chips, and what you have is a circuit board with just the wiring. Okay, with just the wiring, and so that wiring basically is going to tell us what's going to connect to what, which pin. Now, wiring doesn't tell us the dynamics of the system. It's only the static connectivity amongst the components. So you insert a component there, and uh, and then the wiring will take communication or take messages from one to another, and things will start happening. So a typical motherboard you must have opened and seen. It involves a circuit with with its components. You remove all the components and you have the wiring. So in software architecture terminology, these are called connectors, connector architecture. And then you place components in, and then you get the full product. Okay. So now what is, uh, so in programming, there are still several challenges, to which we may have to go to achieve, much higher level of reuse and modernization of software engineering ideas and basic principles, because the growth is really, is going in multiple directions, from challenges from technology compatibility and multi-paradigm programming and portability and all that. So, but the basic ideas of software engineering, stay, and then these principles are, can be banked upon while designing big big programs. So people in the industry, they design systems, based on their previous experience. So typically designers, one doesn't become a designer directly after, say, graduating. You look at, say, just design patterns, object-oriented design patterns, which were the buzzword, a decade ago, or maybe about 15, 20 years ago. And people who knew design patterns were quite sought after in the program design groups, or so. But they are very intricate, and it's not easy to understand the differences between them, which one is needed exactly where, because they carry a lot of information. So, hello, any question? So anyway, so any question so far? Please feel free to ask a question, any if you have, and I will be happy to take questions. Okay, so I assume that there are no questions. You can raise hand, and I think someone can monitor raised hands and call upon people, maybe turn by turn. We have about 140 plus 145 participants, so I'm sure there'll be questions. I love to have questions online, so there is no problem. We have time, and I want the idea to go through successfully. At least the core of it. Then we will come to know what we are doing here and what can be done. Thank you. So I was talking about design patterns. So they're quite complex, and it may involve just a few classes, and but the relationships that we add into them, they make complex structures, and to understand the entire behavior of that is not a beginner's cake. Okay, so similar. So in design, basically, you require a lot of experience. So people in the industry typically go through years of experience, and then they start developing intuitions around designs and architectures. And most often, if they have already done a project, they would have known the drawbacks, advantages of the earlier designs, and then they can move forward, carry over ideas and patterns. Now, what the design information is in their heads, in their head. Okay, there are books, and then books publish patterns, so patterns of interaction. So now we want that knowledge to be represented using some tiny concepts on calculus and mathematics. Okay, so you have done automata, state machines. So we can build a state machine for an object that you may have known if you have if you have done UML, or if you have done object-oriented software development. So first thing that you understand is that an object is a state machine, and the state changes when a member function is invoked on the object, and a response to a member function depends on the state of the object. So you change the state of the object, the same function may get you a different result the next time. So these are not pure functions. They see the side effect of previous functions, and that is what is the state of an object. And the object moves from state to state, and these states are finite states, they're not infinite states. Although you can have an infinite, theoretically infinite sequence of member function invocations on an object, states are finite, and then the object is modeled as a finite state machine. Okay, so that's the beauty of modeling. So we can say, you can have any number of calls and then in any sequence, but I have built a robust state machine for the object because I have a model and I can tell you that it will never go wrong. You only faithfully translate this model into correct implementation. Then things will not go wrong. So that's the beauty of modeling. We deal with tiny ideas. And then when you go to implementation, it might become a 1,000-line program, but this may be just a one-page model, okay, or half a page model, or just a paperwork. And then you convert it into implementation, faithfully translating your model, not making changes to the core architecture that is there in the model. So model must be visible in your program, traceable in the program. That's a traceability issue. Okay, how models to trace your models and deployment. That's another issue. We have worked on traceability also. And by the way, since the topic has come, I would like to encourage you to take a look at our recent paper on traceability. Tracing through and through, different artifacts and models. So, okay, so that is about model and implementation. So this point I brought to emphasize the importance of models, which are tiny, cute, and clear and concise and precise, which capture the essence of the software or the subsystem that you are going to design. So now state machines have been heavily used in object orientation. Now, when we come to new programs on the internet, there is a lot of concurrency, okay, and heavy interaction among components. There are users. So, what paradigm or what kind of modeling machinery should we use? Now, CCS offers one excellent solution. Robin Milner is the inventor of this idea. He has then developed it into a full-fledged calculus called PyCalculus. But the core of the PyCalculus is the CCS, which captures, which gives us a very tiny modeling, mathematical modeling notation for communicating systems. Essentially, structure and interactions. Okay, so components connect. We started with IC chips and connections and connectors. So there is a structure and then interaction happens through them. There are components and interaction happen through them. So with this background, you must be a bit curious now as to what is in this box. So let's open this box and move to the next slide. Okay, so this is the outline of the talk, and let's look at this program. So essentially, we have components and connections within it. So components are seen as agents in CCS, And there is no separate abstraction provided for connection. So we don't say connection C1, C2, C3. We just have component C equal to something, its equation, and component D equal to something, its equation. So we have two components here, client. So we can say client equal to something, 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 and server equal to something, something, something. And we will say that the system equal to client composed with server. This is our architecture and this is our model. So what is the language? Client equal to what? What are we going to say there? So we are soon going to discover the primitives of this calculus. So if connections need to have behavior of their own, they are modeled at region. So if you want something to happen between client and server in the connection itself, then you model it as a separate agent inside, which will be an intermediate agent. Okay, so connections don't have their own identity here, or physical as such, a physical component or an expression. So they come into existence because of certain rules in this language of CC. So in a short while, we will see how exactly we represent this client server system. Now you can see that there are some additional names written over there. So we have two connectors and 4 names are there, and then some names have over bars on there. Okay, so an over bar represents an output port. Okay, so these are the names of ports, and we have 2 connections. So request bar and request. So it's a request port on the server and request bar on the client, and reply on the client and reply bar on the server. Okay, so I think, is the mouse visible? I think the mouse may not be visible. Okay, so you can refer to the slide which is shown. So on the top connection, okay, and there are two. There is a upper connection and the lower connection. In the upper connection, the information flow is from the client to the server. So the over bar represents output port. So it's like a it's like imagine client has one IC chip, server has another IC chip, and they have 2 pins, and the output pins are named with an over bar on them, and the input pins don't have an over bar on them. So client sends some a sex signal, an output on request bar. So the pin is just enabled 1. You raise it to 1. There is no value. So in the basic calculus, there are no value. You just raise the signal. So just like in your circuits, you're just making it 1 or 0. Okay. So basic calculus is like that here. And then you have an extended value passing calculus where values are passed and then it becomes more complex. So on request bar, if this pin is made 1, the top left, then server can read it through request. And then inside something happens in the server. So there is entire logic inside the server that will respond to it. And it sends reply. So reply bar means an output can happen on reply. And a rep port and client at the left bottom, it's the input port for the client. So client has 2 pins, 1 output, 1 input. Server has 2 pins, 1 output, 1 input. And output of client is connected to the input of server, and output of server is connected to input of client. You can notice one more thing: the opposite pairs of name or ports have the same name. Just the difference is that the output. So every pair of ports is, one is output, one is input. The output port has an overbar on it, and input port doesn't have an overbar on it. So we have basically 2 connections: request and reply. Now the reply output is coming from the server going into the client, and request output is going from the client and going into the server. Now in this diagram, we cannot say which one is first and which one is second. It's just that one is drawn above the other. But you can draw it in any way. It need not be a straight line. It can be a curved line. No issue with that. You are naming them and you are connecting these two components. So I have two components and two connectors. And there are names on those ports. And something is going to happen inside those. But from this diagram, I cannot say which action happens first. So that depends on the detailed expression of this model. So now you may ask a question as to what is there in the client? How do we capture that this is first and then this is second? Because we are looking at calculus, we are not looking at a visual modeling notation. We are not going to stop. We are right now it's a visual notation, but we are not going to stop with it. We want to develop a precise model and which we can analyze and which we can write algorithms. And we can say whether a client will ever get a reply in your model. You can say your model is wrong, your client will never get a reply because this is this. Now from this diagram, we can't say that because it's just a visual model, it's our intention, but we have to develop it further into a detailed model using the CCS language. So what comes next? Now, before going to the next slide, I would like to invite your questions. Any questions? Hello? I hope.
So no doubt, sir. No doubt, sir.
Okay. Please say. Yeah. So all these, we can do in CCS. So agents. Now we have two agents here. Okay, client and server. So first bullet says agents are expressed through agent expressions. So we can write an agent expression for every agent. Now from that expression, we'll know what that agent actually does. Agents have input and output ports. We have seen this. Client, it has one input, one output port, and server has one input and one output port. Agents perform input and output actions on these ports. So on input port, agent performs input actions, and on output port, agent performs output actions. And these input output are just the ones and zeros. Output action has been performed. We are not talking about sending values right now. Okay, you can also pass values as parameters, but at architectural model level, many models can be done without having to worry about the values. Then a fourth bullet, agent expressions can be sequences of those actions. So I can have a client which has client expression equal to first do a request bar and then do a read reply. Okay, and then its counterpart will be on the server. So client is first sending a request and then waiting for a reply to come. And if my client is doing it infinitely, continuously, then it will be a loop. So I should be able to have a loop inside an agent expression. Okay, so sequences. We should have sequences inside every expression. Okay, so first thing that we saw, that the first bullet says agents are expressed as to agent expressions. Then we saw that there are agents have input and output ports. Then we saw that third bullet, that input and output actions are done on these ports. And then fourth, we saw that we can now make sequences of these actions inside agents. Now sequences are not sufficient. We will see that, as soon as your architecture becomes complex and concurrency creeps in, sequences are not enough. So the idea of non-determinism comes in. So if you have a sequence, suppose you have a server and you have two clients, and requests may come from any of the two clients. So what will be the server's agent expression? Server may say, wait first for request from client 1, then reply, and then wait for request from client 2, and then reply, and then go back. It may have a very big sequence like that. Wait for client 1, reply to client 1, wait for client 2, reply to client 2, go back and loop. But this is going to be limiting, because if client 1 is not ready and client 2 is sending, the server will not be able to address client 2, because till you receive the request from client 1, you cannot handle client 2. So sequence is clearly not sufficient. And this is what is the crux in modern applications with multiple users accessing websites. You cannot block on client 1, on one single client. You have to keep handling whichever request is coming to you. So that is the idea of non-determinism. There may be multiple inputs at a time available, but I can take whichever I want. Okay. So you can, whichever is available, you can take of the multiple available, you can take one of them, continue and go back and again read or wait for another input. Okay, so the idea of non-determinism comes in, because sequences are no longer sufficient because of the complexity in our application. Agents can be composed together to form bigger systems. So I have an agent called client, and I have an agent from server. So I go to one vendor, one shop, and say, give me one client chip. And I go to the neighboring shop and I say, tell them, give me one server chip. And then we got those two chips and we put them on the motherboard and things started working. So each agent we want to look at as an independent entity which has its own agent expression, which does not depend on another agent. Now this is a very new idea, in the sense in software, in programming doing, because we have seen objects and we have seen structures which have pointers to other objects and other. There are direct pointers, and if we are using types, then we even know the name of the other entity inside our class. But here, that's not the case. It's just like your IC chip. Take one, another, connect. One IC chip doesn't know to which IC chip it's going to connect. Does it? No, it doesn't. You have the circuit board and you simply connect them and things start working. So then you get this component orientation. You can take one out and put another there. If a component fails, there is some problem, you take it off, put another, things will start working. And then there is also standardization that chip 1, chip 2, pin 1, pin 2, pin 3 must following this only. This is a manual. And then you can buy the same component from another vendor, say resistor, for example, resistance. You might have seen electrical circuits. Suppose you have a 1K resistance, you can buy that resistance from any vendor as long as it is 1K. And it has 2 pins which can go into the socket that you have designed on your motherboard. Similarly, suppose you are purchasing some chip IC5, whichever IC5, whichever. You can purchase it from any vendor who is manufacturing it, provided that it follows the protocols on those chips. Exactly. Then things will start interacting. So we are composing and am I audible?
Yes, sir. Now you are.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we are composing agents, and each agent is an independent entity. Each has its own agent expression, just like the IC chips and the electrical component, the mechanical component. They don't know whom they are going to connect. Okay, but they are independent. They have their own behavior. Then we put together and then we build system. So this gives us, a real form component orientation, and we can design and reason about our systems much better. We have found that out through our research, on these lines. So before composing a system with another, some ports can be hidden. This one is also there. So CCS now comes up with some interesting ideas. So now, given basic abilities, we can have agents, we can have ports, and then we have inputs and outputs, and then we connect them, and we have agent expressions, and we have non-determinism. And then in addition, when you are connecting, you can say you can hide some ports so that they are not connected. So you get some complexity. And then it gives another ability. Before composing, you can also rename some ports. So if I rename a port, if I have a complementary name on the other component, it will get connected. Okay, so now let's go to the next slide, the calculus. So now maybe this is what you are waiting for. And if I'm able to, I have been able to, raise your curiosity as to what this calculus is finally. Maybe now is the kind of climax. So here it is. Hello.
Sorry,
Okay.
it was some disturbance.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah. So let's continue. So now we have this system. So we are saying client equal to request bar dot rep dot client, server equal to request rec dot rep bar dot server, and system is client compose server. This is the specification of the system which we have seen here in this picture. This picture is a visual one which tells us that we intend to do this. We intend to make such a system. But this visual picture, the image is an idea, but it has to be concretized in terms of an agent expression, set of agent expression. So we are using, you can now see a few things here. I have listed them all. So let's see the first bullet, a non-terminating system of client and server. This is a non-terminating system. It's never going to stop. Why? Because client has a sequence. So dot represents sequence. Okay, sequence of actions, one after the other. So in your C++ program, it's a semicolon. Okay, you just continue. So dot, you do first, then dot something, then dot something. So in the end, we are going back to the same agent client. So it's going to repeat infinite. Request bar dot rep, then request bar dot rep. Now, when you are doing something, when you are in the middle of the sequence, you have to complete the sequence. This is one rule in CCS. You cannot leave it back. Even if there is something else available, some request is available on some other connection, you don't take it. You have to complete the sequence. And whenever there is opportunity for choice to non-determinism, only then you can choose. Not till the opportunity for choice comes in. So it's like you are filling a form and then you have to fill certain things. Just a minute. Hello, sorry for that disturbance. So we were talking about non-terminating system, infinite system, and we have a sequence, and in between the sequence, we are not stopping, and then we said that choice comes in whenever choice is offered by the expression itself. Okay, by the expression itself. Now here, there is no choice. In this architecture, there is no choice. There is no choice for client, no choice for server. It's just a sequence which you have to follow. So when you fill forms, some things you have to keep filling, and then when the choice comes, you can choose. You can choose any one of them. So the system behind is ready for any choice to handle any choice that you may fill. Okay. Otherwise, you can say an incoming student, you can say you have to join, you have to pay this fee, you pay that fee, you have to pay the base bill, you have to take the hostel, this, that. And then when the choice comes, you can say these are 4 courses, 2 courses are compulsory, and for these 2 you have a choice. Then the student can choose between from given a list of. So when it comes to selecting, when it comes to choice, the system is going to offer you the choices, and that's where the non-determinism comes into play. Otherwise, when a sequence is going on, there is no interruption. The sequence keeps continuing. So in this case, the client server and the system. So system is the architecture which involves one client component and one server component. So it's the motherboard system. Okay, is the motherboard which connects. So the vertical lines there is the bottom bullet explains it. The vertical line, that operator is called composition of combinator. These are combinators because they combine. Okay, they combine 2 different things. So the vertical line is combining 2 agents or 2 components or 2 IC chips, client and server. So it's called composition of combinator. It makes a composition of 2 agents. It connects like corresponding inputs and outputs. It just connects. So you can see now, client has chosen 2 ports, RIC and rep. And client has chosen rec to be output and rep to be in. So the actions from the list of actions from the agent expression has actions. Now there is a sequence here and it's an infinite one, and actions in the action set, it is using rec and rep, and it is using rec for output and rep for input. In the server, something else is happening. Server is choosing rec for input and rep for output. So server is having rec.rep_bar.server. Client is having rec_bar.rep.client. And then we are saying system is a composition of client and server. They are put together. Okay. So it's a non-terminating system of client and server. Rec and rep are input actions on input ports. Rep_bar and rec_bar are output actions on output ports. Dot operator is called prefix combinator. It makes a sequence of actions. Okay, so it makes sequences of it. So you have a dot followed by something, followed dot something, that gives you one sequence. So client is having one sequence, server is having one sequence. Okay, so we have 2 combinators here. One is dot and one is vertical line. So dot is combining 2 actions in a sequence, and vertical line is combining 2 agents or 2 agent expressions, in composition, connecting the ports which are peer ports, same name but input output. They will automatically get connected. So now you remember that I was saying that there is no special language to represent the connectivity. It comes automatic from these agent expressions. So this is it about this client server system. This is it. These 3 lines. There is nothing more to be done to express that these are connected and all that. And this is rec bar is connected to rec and rep is connected to rep bar. There's nothing of that sort in this expression that we have written. This is it. So the rules of CCS itself tell us that this rec bar, when rec bar is happening, if server is waiting at rec, there will be synchronization. Rec bar will happen in client and rec will happen in server, which is equivalent to saying that client has sent a request and server has got it. So client will move one step next to rep and server will move one step next to rep bar. Okay, so this is how the progression will happen. Now, if there is input and output correspondence, they will do that action together in one step. They'll do that. So client will move to client, move one, one action next, and server will move one action next. If both of them correspond, both these actions correspond. So when you are replying and somebody is reading your reply, or when you are requesting and if somebody is reading your request, these two happen at the same time and both machines change their states. Okay. So just like, say, for example, two people are standing in front of each other, and when they see each other, then one tells another that you raise your hand, I'll raise my hand down. So so that person raise her hand up, and this person raises his hand down simultaneously. So the person says something, hello, and your protocol is that the moment so the hello, saying of hello and reading of hello is happening at the same time, and after hello you can do your next set of actions. So this synchronization is happening through input and output, through corresponding ports, to peer ports, and the client is moving into its program request, reply, request and reply, request and reply. And server has its own program request, input and reply output. So client output request, input reply, and again goes back to client, and server does input request and output reply and goes back to server, and system, the motherboard is a composition of the two. Okay, so now with this, I will again take a break to ask you or to give you time for questions. Otherwise, we're going to move to the next complication, where I've already said that sequences are not sufficient and we require non-determinism. We'll see how that happens. Questions?
So there is a question in chat box.
Okay, I will see the question.
Yeah, please.
Will the server agent use some scheduling algorithm for responding? Is it embedded in the chip? Okay, so there is no scheduling algorithm in the agent expression level, but there is the idea of non-determinism, and we are saying anyone may happen. So scheduling algorithm is an implementation concept. Okay, so at the level of modeling, we are saying that any of them can happen. So we will now deal with that aspect. So here, scheduling has is not relevant in this particular program because it's just one single sequence which is continuously repeating, and both of them are independent. They can execute independently. We are assuming that they can make their own internal state changes. Now we are not saying that they are loaded on the same machine and some operating system scheduler is running them. That is an implementation idea. Whereas we are looking at the calculus. So like it's like mathematics. Now how far this is actually implemented, that's a different question. How faithfully is it implemented? That's a different question. So that's where scheduling algorithm may come in. The scheduling algorithm may not give you the flexibility that the model provides. Then you have to make sure that scheduling is done accordingly, non-determinism is preserved, or if you are sorting out non-determinism based on some priorities, you know what you are doing. Okay, so hope I answer your question, and as we move next. Okay, so as we move next, we will also get a little bit more clarity on this. So now comes non-determinism. Okay, so when suppose here in this system there are two clients and one server. Now when two clients are coming, the idea is this: the server can take on anyone, but complete that one, complete, dispose of, and then you can take on anyone again. So you are dealing with one client, take the request, send a reply. So now internally you can have internal computation. So we can have an internal action called internal computation, IC. Okay, so I can have server request1.ic.rep1. So you can see the server agent expression. It I'm using brackets for disambiguation, and there is a plus symbol. Now this is the third symbol, and that's all. That's almost it. That's all about it. But it's a very powerful calculus. Very celebrated calculus. Uh, so this plus, what does it do? So this plus is combining two agents. It's another combinator called summation combinator. You can see the third bullet. Plus is a summation combinator, which represents a non-deterministic choice between two agent sub-expressions. It's a non-deterministic choice. So choice is there. So when you start, you have a choice. You either go in the left branch or in the right branch. Now suppose, both clients are ready. Client 1 is doing request 1, client 2 request 2, both are ready. Now only one of them is going to fire. One of them will connect, or one of them will move to the next state. Client 1 will move say to rep 1 and server will move to rep 1 bar. And then till you come back to that same position in the beginning of the server agent expression, you don't have the choice available. Once you take a client, suppose suppose you are serving say some sweets or something. You are selling some vada pav or something, and there are multiple clients. They are all standing, at your counter, not queued up. There's just 4 or 5. They're standing there. Now they're all having money in their hand. They're showing you their currency, and then you are the server. So you are going to take one person's money, and after that you are not going to pick up another person's money. This is our code. I'm explaining these 4 lines here. Server, you are the server. You are going to take one person's money, go back to you go back to your kitchen, get the vada pav for that person, and hand it over. Then that person goes, and maybe that person will again come with another currency note. In this case, client 1 is an infinite client, so there are two customers which have infinite money in their pockets, and they will take out one note, and then the server is also equally infinite. It also says, okay, you have infinite money, I have infinite vada pavs. Give me one note, and I'll pick up from one. And you pick up from one, then go and get that dish and hand it over. Then you are back to the choice. So that's where you have the choice. So when you are in dot, when you are complete inside, you have taken a choice, you have gone inside the agent expression, and then you only have dot available, you don't have choice available. So this server has its own state machine, and as you take actions and move next, you are changing the state. And when you are inside, you don't have the plus available. Then you are back to the original S0, the beginning state. Then you have the choice available. At that time, you can say, okay, I will pick up money from anybody. Now here, the question of scheduling is a relevant question. But the answer is that the model says it's non-deterministic. Anyone can be taken. So, which means it's possible that if both are infinitely there, I have a trace in my architecture which says that only client 1 will be served all the time. So if I give you this program and ask a question, do I have a trace in my architecture in which client 1 will get served all the time and client 2 will never get served? So the answer is yes, because the state machine that we have built is like that. Okay, so then you can have a question that is there a possibility in your architecture that infinitely the server will be serving client 1 first, then client 2, then client 1, then client 2. So you can say, yes, it is also possible. That's a possible trace. Then you can say, you can ask, is a trace possible where client 2 is served 2 twice and then client 1 once? Sorry, then client 2 once and then client 1 twice and then client 2 once. You can say, yes, that is also possible. Because of non-determinism, you have the choice. So you take the one that matches the trace. So now you can see how many traces are possible here, how many possibilities. So all sorts of traces are possible in this system, and you may not want all those traces. Then you have to come and work on your specification and say, I don't want these traces. So if your requirement is very tight, that I want only these traces and not these traces, these and these only and nothing more, then you have to think about your machine and see whether you can eliminate the traces that you don't want. Okay, so now so we have a very interesting architecture here. We have two clients and a server, and there is a plus, and the plus is telling us non-deterministic choice between two expressions. So it's basically at the beginning of those expressions. Okay, the expression is a big sequence. So you are saying either this sequence or that sequence. When you come to a choice, you have a choice of one sequence, left sequence, or right sequence. So here this is, we are giving two expressions. You can have multiple of them. So when the choice point comes, you have basically two expressions enabled, and you can start from any one. Now request one, can be taken if there is a request one bar from the client. When you want to say that whenever there is request one bar, then only do this request one. So this is called tight coupling, or highly interactive program. Then you can take request one. If request two, or if the client 2 is also making a request, then you have a choice. So essentially, we are now able to capture non-determinism here, but the consequences can be far beyond our imagination. Things may happen not as per your expectation. There may be starvation here, and you have not looked into solving that problem. Then it may come into the implementation, because the model is this way. The model is like that. Okay, so this gives us the non-determinism part of our model. So we basically now, in summary, we have agents, we have ports, we have inputs and outputs, we connect them, we combine them. Okay, that's called composition. And then we have actions, input output actions, and we have sequences, and we have loops, and we can compose agents, and we build bigger systems, and we can sum up, or we can sum agent expressions to get non-deterministic choice. Okay, so this much we have got. This is quite powerful, and we can actually build machines or build architectures using this. So I will give you a few examples later on. So in order to see what exactly is happening here, we can visualize them through state diagrams. So now before, I think I have a few state diagrams, and then it can get quite complicated. But I would like to take a break and get a few questions, and maybe next, I think, I don't know how much time I have, maybe 10 more minutes. Or we can probably have an interaction session first, and then I will see how much time we left. So we have time till 4:30, I guess.
Yes, sir. That's true.
So let's have questions before I continue.
Any questions from the participants?
Okay, so let me continue. So now this behavior that I was saying, that these are infinite, expressions, client 1, client 2, and server, and these, they look to their actions. It's like that what above example. give money, get the delivery, order and delivery, and typical client server. So here is the state machine or transition diagram for client. So we enter into state C0. In C0, request bar is the only possible thing. You can see client equal to, that agent expression on the top left, you can see client equal to request bar dot rep dot client. So in the beginning, you don't have a choice. Request bar is what you can do. So in C0 state, I just initiated the component so that incoming arrow says that when you create the component, when you boot the system, client is going to start with C0 and it can do only request bar. So it can send a request. Then when you are in C1, you can get a reply back. So rep without the overbar means input. Okay, and rec with the overbar means output. So request output, reply input. This is the agent expression for client. And below you can see a trace, possible trace. This is the only possible trace for this machine. Request bar, then reply, request bar, reply, and it's an infinite trace. It's unending. You can see that it's unending. There's a loop here. Okay, there is no way out of it. It's infinite line. Similarly, we have the server. So in the case of server, it's request input, reply output, and back to server. So S0, request input and reply output. And then it goes to S1, and in S1, it outputs the reply. So server traces request and reply bar, request and then reply bar, and on and so forth. And it's an infinite trace. So these two chips we have, and these are the state machines. And then we put them together. What happens? Now this fellow is doing on its own. Okay, so suppose you take client chip and you put it on motherboard, you power it. What's going to happen? It's going to output something on that port and read from that port, reply. It doesn't matter whether there's nothing there, it will read 0. But it's an infinite machine. Okay. So for example, there are two persons, and suppose you are I think I will just switch on my video to give you a small I'll animate it. So suppose there is one person and one person is moving a hand like this. Another is moving the hand. So they are independently, so if they move it together, there will be a clap. Otherwise, suppose this is what is happening. They are independently moving in some order, and sometimes they come together and there is a clap. Okay. So these two agents are basically independently taking their actions. Okay. So when they come together, then the interaction happens. And exactly, one's output action and other's input action get synchronized. So output of one is received into the input of another. Otherwise, they can do the same thing independently. So this is an agent expression. Okay. Agent expression. And they are independent. Agents are just like IC chip. So it starts its logic in infinite sequence. Read, write, read, write. But the writing is happening only on the chip. Sorry, only on the pin. Only on the pin. Doesn't matter if somebody is actually listening to it connected. If someone is connected, then if that connected fellow, the connected component is doing a read at that time when you're doing a write, then it will get synchronized and it will happen one indivisible action, single action, input output together. Okay. Otherwise, independently, somebody is doing output, and independently somebody is doing input reading, and somebody is writing. So you are shouting and somebody is listening. Suppose you have been given say 2 phones or 2 headsets, and one is the headsets to one you speak and to another the other person listens. But when you are speaking, the other person is not picking up and listening. Your whatever you are speaking is gone wasted. Okay. So, but when the synchronization exactly happens, then it will be a single individual action. So this independence of the agent is something that we need to remember. And what happens when we combine? This is what is the result. This is a complex state machine, and maybe with this diagram, so, and then one more idea I will tell you, and maybe after that we will stop. So I think, or if I run out of time, please stop me, because the presentation is available to my homepage as well. Or if you are further interested, you can, we can discuss later. So this is the combined state machine. So client is doing request bar dot reply dot client, and server is doing request dot reply bar server, and system is doing client compose server. And now our client and server are these non-deterministic ones. These ones. Sorry, in this one, it's only the sequential one, the very first, not the second. This one, the second one is going to become even more complex. So this one. So this diagram represents the composition of the two sequential clients and server. Now just go through it and see what's going on there. Someone explained to me, why are there 4 states? So first thing, you have to see why there are 4 states. And I'm not going to move forward till I get an answer, either correct answer or an attempt. Can you see that there are 4 states? The ellipses are the states, and then the transitions are the arrowheads. Yeah. So why are there 4 states? You can put it in chat box if you don't want to, speak out. Just put your ideas. I hope it's all making sense. The program is here. The program is given above, client server system, and the state machine is just blowing up now. Okay, so I think I'm not sure whether you are able to get the answer. I assume that some of you know the answer, but let me explain. Am I audible? Okay, someone has, I think, written a comment. Server request and reply. Okay, so 4 states. Okay, so you are close, but not yet there. These are not the 4 states. In the hello. Yeah, so you can try. Why are there 4 states? What do the states correspond to? So the states don't correspond to something static, right? They correspond to some happening. For example, we are awake, then we sleep, and we go into dream, and then we again go into sleep, deep sleep, we dream, deep sleep, dream, and then we are awake again. Okay, so we have a state machine. There may be other states which we don't know of, but these CR states which we very regularly undergo. This dynamic, this something is happening. So eating and then relaxing. So something is happening, and then because of that we change the state. So states are basically capturing dynamics. Do we have some more answers? Source to destination and vice versa? No. Okay, anyone else wants to try? Why are these four? So okay, let me read out the names of those states. Maybe you'll get the clue. C1S0, C1S1, C0S0, C0S1. Now you can try. Four states. They are shown in the picture. I think maybe just interaction will be a little bit more efficient than the chat. Yeah, I think that is what. So now the next message. So you have given the actions, but I'll make a slight change to this answer, which has come into the chat. Now, so the the first go was client server request reply are the four states, but no, they are not the four states. Then source to destination and vice versa. No, they are not the four states. Then the next one says client request to server, client reply to server, server reply to client, and server request to client. So these are basically actions happening, state transitions. But what are the states? Okay, so now, so from the last answer, we can actually get the right one. So C0S0 means client is at the initial state and system is at, sorry, and server is at the initial state. Client is ready to request and server is ready to get a request. Okay, so it's not client requested or server requested. That's the next one. That will go to the next one. But what is the beginning? C0S0, client is ready. Is just, it has not even begun the first action. So we are saying that yes, client has two states and server has two states and the combination is four states. That's correct. So which are those two states? Client is ready to request, and then after the request has happened, then we say client is waiting for reply. Then server is ready to receive a request, and then the server is going to reply. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
there was some disturbance.
Okay.
Okay, so these are the four states. Okay, client has two and server has two. So once you take an action, then you change, then you go into another state. So you can see that this program allows all these transitions. Some of them are independent. So you can see that from C0S0, we have a state change to C1S0. So S0 has not changed, server has not changed, server is still there, but client has sent the request. Now, where has it gone? It has just vanished. We can see that they are independent. So sometimes the synchronization can happen. Now the tau transition, that's where the synchronization happens. They both change. So C0S0 becomes C1S1. So client has requested, server has got the request. And then from there, another tau happens. Server has replied and client has taken the reply. Then these two tau. So the tau ones, the middle, uh, the innermost two transitions are the ones which are representing the interaction, and the other ones are representing independent actions which are possible. Now the calculus also allows you to say that don't permit independent actions, only interactions on these ports. Okay, so there is something called restriction operator, which is here, in curly brackets. So this is another, exercise, user interface, business logic, and databases. So you can go on, and then you can, this curly brackets and backslash that says that restrict these ports for interactions only. Don't permit independent actions on these. Then your state machine will not blow up. Okay, so I think there are several exercises, and and then I mean, some more examples. But essentially, there is an example for semaphores also, or maybe a question for you to work it out. But this is part of this. I used to discuss this in one of my courses. So we are back to the beginning slide, and I think I hope now you have got some idea about how one can do models of non-deterministic concurrent systems, especially using a very tiny set of primitives, which are quite powerful to represent interactions in real systems, in large scale systems with many components and interconnectivity. Things can go quite complicated from here, and there's a whole lot of research that we are doing. And if you are further interested, you can download a couple of papers in this topic and have a peek in them. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, yeah, I think I hand over to
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge with participants without keeping it to yourself. So now, any queries from the audience?
Sir, if the number of clients and servers get increased, then the number of states will also get increased, sir?
Yes.
Then making all these transactions?
Yeah. Typically, these models we don't make. We only write agent expressions, and the tool can reason about it.
Okay.
So the tools can then read the program and then figure out what. So we can ask queries to the tool. Is this trace possible? Is that trace possible? Or can this trace be avoided? Will this be avoided? Is there starvation? Is there deadlock? All these properties satisfied? Will the request reply circuit happen correctly? So all these questions can be posed in another language, in some language, and then the tool will read the program and build these state machines internally and take your queries and questions and answer.
So what type of tools will be used, sir, here?
These are verification tools which support CCS.
Okay, sir.
There are a couple of them available. We are also building something in this direction.
So what type of language they use, sir, in building up these tools? And
so for CCS, you have the raw CCS itself, and then for queries, you can use the CTL or model mu calculus. So have a look at one paper on architectural patterns which we have written. It's available on my homepage. It gives you specifications of some popular architecture patterns, software architecture patterns, and some of these queries, and how to represent properties of architectures and how to verify that you have a system. You have got a system which is going to do things that you want the system to do. It's not going to do things that you don't want it to do. So the tool can be used to model check.
Okay, sir.
Any other queries from the participants?
Okay, I think then. Thank you very much. Enjoyed talking.
Yes, sir. So,
Hello?
One second, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, HOD, sir.
Yeah. Please take the photograph, madam.
Yes, sir. Sir, can you please enable your videos, all the participants? I request the participants to enable their videos.
Yeah, done, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much, Professor Joshi, for your the wonderful talk on architecture modeling using calculus communicating systems. So once again, I'm very much thankful to you for accepting our invitation. I'm sure that most of the the faculty members, those who are teaching this non-deterministic and the deterministic automata and the software engineering and the architecture, they would have understood the topics that were covered, and I'm sure that they are going to make use of these aspects and the references that whatever the research paper references that the Joshi had given will be very much useful for your future research. So thank you, Professor Joshi. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll leave now.
Sir, 1 second.
Yeah. Yes.
Now I request Mrs. Anusha to deliver vote of thanks.
Hello, madam.
Yes, madam, you are audible. Please proceed.
Very good evening to all. Myself, V. Anusha. It is an immense pleasure to deliver vote of thanks on this event. I would like to thank our today's speaker, Professor Rushikesh K. Joshi Garu, for delivering a wonderful session on modeling software architecture with Robin Milner's calculus of communicating systems. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge on about the CSS approach, calculus, and semantics. I extend my sincere thanks to beloved chairman, Dr. of Parliament of Nastropeta, Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. M.Y.S. Prasad Garu, who instructed us to organize webinars on emerging technologies, Dr. M.S. Raghunathan, Registrar of DFSTR, for providing financial assistance. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. D. Venkateshwara Garu, HOD, CSE, and Professor K.V. Krishnakishore Garu, Dean Library and IT Services, HOD of IT Department, for their guidance and support for organizing such a knowledgeable event. I extend my heartiest thanks to all participants who actively participate in today's webinar. I thank organizing committee, Mrs. B. Joshna Devi Madam, Mr. O. Gandhi Sir, and CSA coordinator Dr. Satpathy Sir, webinar coordinators Dr. M. Nirupama Bhatt Madam, Dr. U. Srilakshmi Madam, and who directly or indirectly involved for making this event grand success. Thank you all for your wonderful and active participation. Thank you.
I request all the attendees to fill the feedback form. So I have shared the feedback form in both WhatsApp group and also in the chat box. So please complete this. So while filling the feedback form, please give your full name and other details. So that will be helpful for us to issue our certificates without any mistakes. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for giving such a wonderful talk.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joshi. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, we close the meeting. Thank you.